Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash Gadinga Pachinka Castinga Mayweather.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D Dick Ebert.
These pipes are clean. Ha, ha, ha.
And each week we take a look back in time to decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with a number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, and videos of Big D taking a piss at the side of the road. And how? All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, a lot of weeks I'm excited to review movies that I'm familiar with, big hits. Tonight is a different story. It is a film that I was not aware of, had never seen. But after watching it and then watching it a second time, I'm more excited than usual to come in here and talk about this film tonight. And I didn't know what to expect when our listener Sam P. wrote in and commissioned it. But it was a unique experience, and it was the 1994 American fantasy comedy, Cabin Boy.
Well, you wrote in and said, "Greetings, Shat Crew. Truth be told, when Cabin Boy came out, or more specifically, when the 1990s television gem Get a Life came out, I didn't get it. Chris Elliott's brand of absurdist humor flew right over my 11-year-old head. I was 15 when Cabin Boy was released, and I still didn't get it. I enjoyed Elliott and his cameo in Kingpin, and his character in Something About Mary. It always made me laugh, and it always made me ill at ease. I felt like I was missing something about Chris Elliott. In 2007, I started dating an amazing woman, Jamie, now my wife of 14 years. When I went through her DVD collection and scoffed at Cabin Boy, she wasn't having it. She put the movie in and forced me to watch it immediately. That's when things started to change. After many, many viewings, I'm proud to say I adore Cabin Boy. Elliott's deadpan and pure selfish asshole comedy is right up there with Daffy Duck and Master Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Throw in a great cameo from David Letterman, an otherworldly off-putting scene with Annie Richter dancing like a hula girl, great colors, and one-liner after one-liner, and you've got one hell of a niche movie. Cabin Boy is not for everybody, and that's okay. I think you'll give this 4 wipes, but I hope you laugh at any event. Cheers to all you do. Your humble servant, Sam Perry, chief and co-owner of Stone Creek Bistro in Blue Jay, California.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for commissioning Cabin Boy. This is a dream come true for me, and really a film that I had not revisited for a long time. I want to say a couple things about your commission. First off, your wife sounds cool as shit, because if I had met a woman in 2007 who had Cabin Boy in her DVD collection, I think I'd be smitten right off the bat. And second, give us some credit, man. 4 wipes is a little bit harsh. We understand humor. We're fun people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll find through this podcast that we're picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, 4 wipes, you got to get us angry. There's got to be something adverse about it. Something that really, really just incompetence no longer gets a 4. It's got to be adverse.
It's got to be like Blade Runner or something.
Okay.
Well, Cabin Boy is a 1994 fantasy comedy directed by Adam Resnick, co-produced by Tim Burton, and starring comedian Chris Elliott. Elliott and Resnick, who worked for Late Night with David Letterman in the 1980s and co-created the Fox sitcom Get a Life, co-wrote the movie. So Big D, Ash, we always ask what your memories are of the film. I think I have the closest attachment to this film. It is something that has been in my viewing repertoire for years. I was a massive Get a Life fan. I watched it every night In our 6 years of discussing the 80s and 90s, one thing we haven't really talked about in depth is this massive cultural phenomenon of that era, which is the late night talk show. And they still exist. Like there's Jimmy Kimmel, there's Jimmy Fallon now, they're still around. But I don't think kids today understand how relevant late night talk shows were back in the day. Like Conan O'Brien, Jay Leno, they were a big deal in their heyday. And for a while there, David Letterman was consistently the funniest thing on TV. It was the thing that I would watch every night before I went to bed. And I was totally team Letterman. Everybody had their own little entourage, and you just kind of associated with one of them most closely. And by extension, that meant I was on team Chris Elliott and team Andy Richter. I saw this movie in 1994. I told everybody about it. Nobody liked it. And so I'm so glad that somebody else out there in the world appreciates it.
Yeah, but Gene, you got to go even back further. Johnny Carson, The Tonight Show with Ed McMahon. They made people's career. If you got on there and you did well and Johnny would have you back every couple of weeks, it would make you a star. If you came out and bombed, it could destroy you. The entire late night TV show, there was Tonight Show, then there was Later, then there was Late Night, then there was After. It turned into its own little cottage industry of late shows. And because there was nothing else going on at that point, it was, cable had just started and people were all getting eyeballs onto it. I agree with you. I was a Dave Letterman fan. And in doing research for this, I realized there was a connection. I've seen Dave Letterman live twice, once at 30 Rock, Rockefeller Center, and once at the Ed Sullivan Theater. In looking up the shows, because I remembered I saw Four Non-Blondes. It was Four Non-Blondes. Sandra Bernard was a guest, and Beau Bridges. This was January 4th's show. I think it was a Monday or Tuesday. They were plugging Cabin Boy because it came out 10 days later. Little did I know, all this time later, I would be watching this. But I didn't know the movie, what it was. All this time when we knew this was coming in our schedule, I thought for some reason it was a Chris Farley movie. Because I remember Chris Farley and Tommy Boy sitting on that little sailboat. And for some reason, whether it was my poor attention to detail or whatever, but I finally remember Chris Elliott and Dave, and it was great to finally put the correct movie to the poster.
And this is a movie I always, for some strange reason, lump in with Billy Madison because I saw them like right around the same time. And Billy Madison, which I've said repeatedly on this pod, is like one of my favorite comedies of all time. And so for some reason, this one just kind of like, it's one I remembered liking, but it's one I didn't remember a lot of. Like I remember Chris Elliott being in it. I remembered the poster with him on the little anchor. I remembered some of the really weird shit like the 6-arm lady. Like I remembered those gags, but I didn't really remember the plot at all. But this was a group of people that, like you guys, I really, really like. There was a group on SNL that like I absolutely worshipped with, Adam Sandler and Chris Farley and David Spade. And then I also had late night people that I liked. And yes, I did like Letterman, but like I have been a Conan like super fan since the mid 90s. I adore Conan O'Brien. I think he's one of the most brilliant people. And so getting to see like Andy Richter and all of that associated with this film as well was really, really fun. And more so than any movie we've done lately, this has made me feel like immense nostalgia. Like I immediately felt again like I was 12 years old watching this type of comedy and thinking it was just genius. So I was incredibly excited to go back and review this one.
I definitely shifted over to Team Coco after a while. Like Letterman, you started to hear those stories about how he was a big control freak and that those like little oopsie moments on the show weren't genuine. And I never liked Leno. I always thought Leno was terrible. Leno always would make a joke and then people wouldn't laugh and then he would explain the joke, which is like the worst kind of joke teller. I don't understand it. And I get his whole like garage thing. I think that's cool. We have a shared love of motor vehicles and conveyances in general. But yeah, I mean, Conan is the guy. And right now, he just recently was a guest on the 99% Invisible podcast where he's talking about the book, The Power Broker, about Robert Moses. And I was just like, God, I fucking love Conan so much. And he's really become, I think, like kind of this old, like sage, wise cultural beacon now. Whereas, I think Leno and Letterman haven't held up that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Letterman has found his place in, Netflix and his whole, like, my next guest is. I mean, I enjoy those. I think Letterman is very, very funny, but I think Conan's brilliant. I mean, I think Letterman is a fantastic comedian. I think that's what he is, though. He's a comedian, where I think like Conan is an artist in a way that's like very different than Letterman, Leno, Jimmy Fallon, any of these clowns that are on today.
All right, with that, let's set sail and hit the trailer.
Touchstone Pictures presents
Here's how a harem girl dances. Okay, well, thank you for that, whatever that was.
the motion picture that's so big. Say what? So charming.
I'm at my wit's end. I can't take it.
So manly. It's sure to be a classic for all generations.
Perhaps. You've been like the drunken, abusive grandfather I never had.
Cabin Boy.
Willkommen.
It's the story of a boy and his love affair with the sea.
This moron got on the wrong boat.
Now he's getting a taste of the sailor's life.
Is it true it's unsafe to drink seawater?
That's a new one to me.
It's the most amazing journey ever.
Okay, moron, you go stand in the bow and let us know when we're coming close to ice.
Okay, you hit one.
He never dreamed where the winds of fortune would blow him. Where the spirit of adventure would hurl him. Or where the hands of fate
Come on over here, honey.
would grab him.
These pipes are clean.
Touchstone Pictures presents
What happened to you?
Well, let's just say I've finally shed my feminine side.
Chris Elliott,
So this is what you guys do for fun? Humiliate an imbecile?
Cabin Boy,
You couldn't be cuter. Hey, would you like to buy a monkey?
Nathaniel Mayweather is a snobbish, self-centered, arrogant, virginal fancy lad. After graduation, he is invited by his father to sail to Hawaii aboard the Queen Catherine. After annoying the limousine driver who is taking him to board the boat, Nathaniel is forced to walk the rest of the way. He makes a wrong turn into a small fishing village where he meets the imbecilic cabin boy / first mate, Kenny, of the Filthy Whore, which Nathaniel believes to be the Queen Catherine as part of a theme.
I think that those of you out there who have not seen this, or if we have any younger listeners who didn't grow up on like 90s brand comedy, there's something very unique about 90s comedies, which is that they didn't really need a plot. It feels like a series of skits that kind of get strung together. And that seems like it may be off-putting, but if it's done correctly, like it's done in movies like Billy Madison, like in Wayne's World, like in Happy Gilmore, and I would argue like in this one, they get funnier as they go. And because of that, it feels like there's a momentum like a plot would give, but instead it's this series of gags. And the opening of this movie has some of the funniest pieces of any film we've reviewed in a really, really long time. You've got those ridiculous wigs that they're wearing. You've got the fact that they're going to get a title of fancy boy, which says
Fancy
everything.
Fancy lads. They're not fancy,
Fancy
boys.
lads. Fancy lads. That's, anything you need to know about what this guy is and what he's supposed to be. Chris Elliott has the weirdest accent, which isn't real. It's like he put it on like with his friends when he got high one night. You've got Alfred Molina in the most random cameo of his career as this teacher. And you've got Chris Elliott doing this whole narration of his walk to the dock where he's trying to teach his body to walk for the first time and screaming when he has sweat on his nose. Like, it's so many things at once. But what happens is there's this comedy that happens in the in-between moments that builds. And by the time he's on the boat and Andy Richter goes to the door and finds him in that face mask in the captain's quarters, like, I was 100% sold. I felt like I was 12 years old again, and I was cracking up laughing.
Ash, you're absolutely right. And in the 90s, they did this thing where the character didn't need a backstory so much as he needed like behaviors, like just the catalog of behaviors. And Cabin Boy really is breaking the rules of every high school or college comedy we've seen on Shat the Movies. So we can really see a departure from the 80s here, because whether we're talking about 3 O'Clock High or Back to the Future, in those movies, you've got a guy who's not the cool guy at school. You got a guy who's not like the most popular dude on the football team, right? He could be a little bit of a misfit, but that protagonist is always the most likable person at his school for us, the audience. Nathaniel, he's not that. We're at this school where everybody is a pretentious fancy lad, and yet our guy is like the biggest asshole among all of them. When the limo driver, picks him up and he says, "Here you go, chubby, go and buy yourself a spritzer." Like, he's just talking down to everybody. And yet for some reason you like him.
Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time with this episode tonight because I watched it originally through, and then I'm playing on the Plex server with the audio settings, and I realized my version also had the commentary with Chris Elliott and Adam Resnick. So I'm like, shit, all right, let me start watching it again. And I know, Gene, a lot of times you've hated when I pull the Roger thing, when I go back and talk about what's going on behind the scenes. But one of our better reviews, I think, was Highlander 2: The Quickening, where we say the movie behind the movie. And you cannot, we have to, at this point, I have to address, this film was written by Adam Resnick for Tim Burton. Tim Burton signed on to direct it. And it had a $50 million budget, and then he had an opportunity to go direct Ed Wood. He backed out and said, "Hey, Adam, why don't you direct this?" So this is Adam's first attempt at directing. He should have never done it. He went out and thought, "Hey, I will take this chance. I'm going to go out." And when you hear Tim Burton attached to it and the surreal aspects we're going to discuss, it makes sense how they could get such an amazing cast of 80s and 90s character actors. You have Chris Elliott, obviously, who's in there. He went on, you have Groundhog's Day, he had just filmed. Something About Mary, scary movie. You got Rich Brinker, who's playing Skunk. He's in The West Wing, Parks and Rec, Mad Men. James Gannon, who's Paps. He was in Major Leagues. Every time I hear him speak, I picture him. He's the manager yelling at the guys about lollygagging. Brian Doyle Murphy, Caddyshack, Groundhog's Day, Wayne's World. You got Big Teddy, who was the guy from Blade Runner, Tango and Cash, The Fifth Element. All of these character actors make it so real. It feels like this could be a fishing boat in a serious movie. You could see these guys out in Jaw. I think they're fantastic. I think the cast is great, and you can understand why these people signed on with the vision that this film would be something other than the utter disaster financially and career-wise that it did become.
I think they were described at one point as like everybody who was cast in this movie, you could smell them through the screen. And that's really what I took away from it, is that everybody was earnestly just gross. But yeah, there was a lot of talent there. And David Letterman, you talked about before how he was plugging this on his show. He gets this little cameo in this movie, and he milked the shit out of this clip. Like, if you ever watched a David Letterman show back in the 90s, he would always show this little clip of himself holding the stuffed monkey and saying, "Would you like to buy a monkey?" That's what he does in the movie. He appears for like a minute. He's a stuffed monkey salesman, apparently, in the seaside village, which makes no sense. And there's this lead up to it, though, where Letterman keeps telling Nathaniel that he's a cute little girl in his little spring outfit. And it's just such a distillation of the comedy that we got on Chris Elliott's show, Get a Life. What I wondered, though, is for an audience, I'd seen Get a Life. I'd seen the Letterman show before this. And I wondered for an audience who hadn't seen it, maybe that's why this movie bombed. Because we didn't really mention this at the beginning of the pod, but this is like a $10 million movie that made about $3 million in theaters. I mean, it is a bomb of the worst kind. And I wondered if they just didn't account for the fact that people were not familiar with what was going on in this style of comedy.
Yeah, I think our commissioner kind of mentions that when he refers to Chris Elliott's type of humor as absurdist humor, right? Like, I think if you're not used to the type of comedy that this is supposed to be, it feels dumb as shit, right? Like, and even Letterman's piece feels really, really like a non sequitur, but I'm sorry, like the way that even Dave Letterman is like holding the cigar in his mouth is hilarious. The way that he's calling him all the different girl names, absolutely hilarious. The way he's walking. And I have to say, like, it was really nice to see young Dave Letterman again, because like the dude looks like a homeless Santa Claus now. You know, I mean, he does not look great. And this was like classic Letterman with a very specific type of comedy that is so good. And it made me really sad for like the shit that we have today that we call comedy. It's like, okay, like fucking James Corden gets a late night show with his carpool karaoke. Like, Dave Letterman has
So
to
bad.
be just like throwing up at what has become network television.
See, and I agree with what you guys said about Conan. Conan was a writer. Conan is funny. He is a funny comedian. But for me, Letterman, he is a much better interviewer. He has a way that he delivers lines, the way he's in different tone when he's asking questions. And he has a timing with his comedy. A lot of times he will sit back and give it space. He doesn't rush it when he's calling him girly boy. Hey, lady man, how you doing? He lets it go. There's a quality to it. And I think he is hilarious. And the way he breaks the fourth wall subtly. He used to do it in his show as well, where if somebody said something stupid or funny, he would just kind of give you a little look. You always felt like you were in on the humor. And I think Chris Elliott, it struggled because if you didn't have anything else to go by him, you'd think he was an asshole. People didn't just not like this movie. They actively hated Chris Elliott. It destroyed him emotionally and professionally.
The next morning, Captain Graybar explains that the boat will not return to dry land for 3 months. Nathaniel tricks Kenny into setting sail for Hawaii, leading the crew into Hell's Bucket. When the ship is caught in a fierce storm, Kenny is knocked overboard and drowns. Without a cabin boy, Graybar forces Nathaniel to do the chores in return for taking him to Hawaii, as well as teaching him how to become a better person.
So I like the way you guys were already making comments about the choices that they're making stylistically or with the sets. And I think it's something that we do a lot, especially after Westworld and the TV, where we're trying to find information. We're trying to problem solve and see what's the story behind the story. And I find myself doing it when I'm trying to justify something on screen that I've not seen before, like a non-traditional choice. And I'm thinking it's kind of a weakness. I'm like, okay, what am I missing here in the creative? When we get to the docks, they go out of the town, which is a real set, and they go out to the filthy whore. And it is so clearly a Truman Show, edge of the horizon, like 3 feet of water. They're shooting on a boat that's not moving. It is so bad. And I was first going into it, I'm going to go, this is surreal nature. This was going to be a Tim Burton movie. No, sometimes bad choices are just bad choices. This wasn't a stylistic decision. This was the studio trying to cut the budget and do as little as they could. And as much as now I enjoyed it, I thought it was great. It was unlike the comedy that was coming out at the time, the Ace Ventura. This was something that must have blown people's mind. Let's not make everything a genius decision that turned out to be gold. Sometimes bad is bad, but it can still be enjoyable.
Well, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things in this movie that people could look at and be like, oh, well, that's terrible. And one of those, like, very obviously are the sets. Like, the sets are laughable in this film. And I did not realize that this was going to be a $10 million movie. I didn't know that until I went through and read some of your notes. And I was shocked because I thought that this film was made for like a couple mil because of how shitty it looks. There's this whole idea I think that they're leaning into, which is this extended version of those late night sketches. And it looks like they made the sets like in a weekend. Like they had the idea on a Friday and they were going to like film on a Monday because they don't even try to make it look like anything other than a soundstage. The makeup, the costumes, very sketch show. Like even the costumes, like it looks like they have like a big trunk. Like, improv troops, they would have like a big trunk of like a bunch of different costumes in case somebody in the audience was like, the 1800s, and they could go pull it out. Or they could be like steampunk and they can go pull it out. Like it looks like they pulled these from an all-inclusive trunk. And I don't know about y'all, but like it was incredibly charming for me. And I think it made it just like chef's kiss, like such like a lean into that shittiness.
I don't think there's any other way they could have made the other jokes work if the set looked good. Like if it looked like they were actually at sea, if it looked like there was like a quality, living iceberg that attacked the ship or whatever, that they had to melt with coffee, it would not work. It had to be that goofy. And Cabin Boy, much like Dirty Work, another movie that I would say is in this vein, it understands that it's a platform for comedy. So every stupid decision is a strength rather than a weakness. And they're not even trying to get a time period nailed down here, right? Some parts of this movie look like they're like the 1930s, like that film Captain Courageous. Some parts feel like they're the 90s where there's microwaves, And there's a limo that picks up Nathaniel from his wig-wearing boarding school. When the movie opens, I thought we were like in the late 19th century. But then he walks his way to like this colonial village. So I was like, oh, did he time travel or something? He's getting on this sail ship that's operated by what I thought was like the cast of Peter Pan. But then David Letterman, he's talking about his dietitian niece. the world is populated by shark men and giants. And you can literally see, you mentioned the set, Ash, you can see the bottom of the fucking pool. Like they're on a boat and you can see the bottom of the pool. It's a perfect disaster. But if they didn't do it this way, none of these jokes would hit.
You could see the sandbags
Yeah.
holding the raft down at the bottom. But yeah, a lot of them look shitty. The soundstage is bad. But the ship, I thought, looks pretty good. Some of the sets, I think, are okay. What about that whole lair later on at the end? The Love Lounge. Some of it, I think you could see attention to. What about Ricky Lake? Ricky Lake as the woman in the front of the ship. That makeup was great. She looked like she was there was money put into certain aspects, and because the budget, the shooting budget was 10. They had originally greenlit 50. So some of the things got some money. Because this, you couldn't do a Tim Burton version of this for 10. It is funny. And I watched it the second time. I enjoyed it much more. And I can see why people are starting to respect this as the years go by, some 30 years later.
And by people, you mean the three of us and Sam and his wife.
Well, that's our goal.
5 people.
If we can get a couple other people, let's get us to 10 people. Give it a chance.
Well, the fishermen decide to put Nathaniel on a floating raft dragged behind the ship for a week. Nathaniel quickly runs out of supplies, begins consuming salt water, and suffers extreme sunburn after confusing cooking oil as lotion. After falling into the water, he is saved by a shark man. Days later, Nathaniel is pulled back in and tells what happened. Skunk and Big Teddy say the shark man is known as Chalky, the offspring of a male Viking and a female shark.
I think one of my favorite parts of this film are the random setups throughout. You've got the raft bit, which is alluded to in this bucket here. And they put him out, and just like him being let out with the string and him having to ring the bell. And when he's like, has it been a week? And it's like, well, it's been 9 days. Like, that whole thing is so funny. You get the girl in the net who's just randomly floating between countries, which, by the way, connection to Magnolia here. She's in Magnolia. Who knew that she would have a career? You get, the fact that they're marooned, and you've got the 6-armed woman that's entering the mix. It's just this weird hodgepodge of these bits that I think, again, it's this horribly weak thread of a plot, but for some reason, like, you can't stop watching. Like, and I started to think by the time they get to the raft, like, I went, wow, this is either like the worst comedy ever and the dumbest shit that's ever been put on screen, or it's fucking genius. I mean, where did you guys fall in that?
And there's moments you just have to trust. Like, for some reason, occasionally Nathaniel's voice will drop a register. He's like, say what? And you don't know why, he just does it. But also, we keep talking about the 6-armed woman. Let's talk about the fact that her giant husband works at I think he's a luggage salesman, but like business has been slow. Travel luggage salesman, business has been slow. It's fucking great. No, I definitely side on the genius part, Ash.
Yeah,
man, they had to make some choices, and I think I like when comedies are self-aware, when they're honest. Nobody in this film thought this was a good comedy. I think they were going to make the best of what they could with it, and that's why it works. I'm forgiving when the cast is transparent with the flaws. And there's some dialogue, a couple of the moments where I feel like they're winking to us saying, hey, we know what's going on. This isn't actually fucking gold. And we get the floating cupcake, that big fat ass floating cupcake. And they say, I wasn't expecting that. What could be stranger? Yes, okay, I agree with you. And later on, there's going to be another strange occurrence. It goes from 80 and mild, and then all of a sudden now it's snowy. And they come out and they're like, oh my goodness, it's so cold. And then I think the captain says, hell's bucket, no rhyme or reason. And one of the other guys goes, hey, let's stop making that excuse. That observation's getting old. I like it when they do that. They're not trying to be smarter. They're having fun. And I'm on board. I give them a pass.
I might be placing too much faith in this film, but I think that these guys are just much, much funnier than we are. Like, I'm a firm believer that professional comedians, they have to dumb their material down for the average audience to understand. Like, Conan's there, he's thinking of something funny, and he's like, okay, now how do I make it so that Gene Lyons will understand it, right? Mm-hmm. And this movie, from Andy Richter's like, this is how a harem girl dances, to when Chris Elliott, when he's like stumbling around on the deck and they're throwing shit at him, they're like, the imbecile. It's funny, but I don't know why I'm laughing at it. And I think that maybe it's funny in a way that I can't explain. Like it's a magic show, right? And the magician won't reveal his secrets. All I know is I'm astounded by what I'm seeing. Nathaniel spots a beautiful young woman named Trina swimming in the ocean and becomes smitten with her, but she rejects him. The fishermen decide to strand the pair on the island they're sailing toward. Graybar and Skunk suggest Nathaniel gain some experience by losing his virginity to a blue-skinned, six-armed woman named Callie. Callie's husband, Mulligan, a giant, discovers Callie's infidelity and is about to kill Nathaniel when Chalky, the shark man, saves him. Nathaniel then kills Mulligan by choking him with his own belt. So as we're getting deeper into the film, I had to keep reminding myself this is a $10 million movie that was actually released in theaters.
Yeah.
So Big D mentioned that the budget was scaled back, but at no point did they say, hey, maybe this goes straight to, VHS. And I try to imagine my mom. Okay, so my mom was about my age in 94. I'm trying to imagine her going out on a Friday night, buying a ticket, getting her popcorn or soda, sitting down and watching Chris Elliott rub himself in cooking oil and hallucinating a tobacco spitting cupcake. And I understand, like you guys mentioned, this movie was attached to Tim Burton, so it got greenlit. Cool, I get it. But at some point, you would think that the execs would say, you know what, like maybe this one goes straight to video. We don't want to have this kind of an embarrassment on our hands because, frankly, I can't think of an audience beyond, again, the 5 people we just mentioned that thinks this is a hit. This is going to be comedy gold.
I don't know, though. Like the details in this that are intentionally shitty, right? Like the way they do his sunburn makeup. And like, it's not red. It's like they painted him hot pink. And then they do like just these little yellow circles for the blisters. It's ridiculous. And it's so funny. And my favorite, I think the perfect example is the way how the shark guy, how clearly the fin is just taped to his back. Like they aren't even trying to hide that this is something that like a child could have rendered as part of a science fair project gone wrong. Like I think when they lean in like that, I think that some exec had to get it and had to go, oh, okay, like this is funny. And just really, I think, underestimated maybe the general public's ability to get it. Because there was one review that I read, which I think sums all of this up. And it was reviewed in 94. I don't remember which paper, but they said, all the critics are hating it. I probably should tell you it's one of the dumbest films of all time, but I guarantee you that 10 years from now, people will be watching this and talking about it like it's absolutely like genius, because I think we're just all not getting it at the moment, but this has cult classic like written all over it.
See, but I feel like it was malicious. Like they were set up to fail. It was like they were going to punish them. There's people who are in the cast who have omitted this from their IMDb. You know, the school in the beginning, that is a set in Hollywood where you can visit. They list every movie filmed there except Cabin Boy. This was a fucking bad example. And I love it to lean into it. Chalky. We meet him. Do we need a backstory on Chalky? Yes, we do. We need to know, hey, you know what happens when a Viking meets a shark? That shit. Why is Nick Offerman bootleg from 1990? Why is he wearing a shark tooth necklace? Somebody just threw it on, but it works. And this movie was going to fail because it had a major problem. How are you going to market this film? The people who would go out there and see the commercials, you market this as the fish out of water. Think Billy Madison and Tommy Boy. They came out the year after this. It's the wealthy idiot kid. He's going to go on some journey of self-discovery. He's going to finally work hard and earn something for the first time in his life. Nathaniel, we meet him at the school in the beginning, and that's the path I think we're going. He's the fancy lad who's going to go on what he thinks is a cruise. He's actually going to have to become a hardened sailor. He's going to learn what struggles are. Then it turns into an oddball Gulliver's Travel, Land of the Lost, Pee Wee Herman, something like Beetlejuice, something odd. I think if you just tone down the beginning fancy lad and did lean into the Gulliver's Travel, surreal, weird shit and did the promotion for that, people wouldn't have been so angry and could have enjoyed it.
Perhaps, but I don't think that's what Chris Elliott does. Like Chris Elliott, again, getting back to Get a Life, this is the kind of character that he plays. He's always going to be true to that fancy lad, sort of untouchable. character. Like when he's answering Callie's riddle of she asks, how does the moon greet her 3 daughters? And it's like, well, if she's a refined lady, and I'm sure she is, she may probably greet her lassies with a gift of some sort, maybe a box of peppermints or some hair care products. And then, it's off to the mall and lunch. Like, he never abandons that original fancy lad that he is, but he somehow makes it through the world that way. Why does Chalky help him out? We never understand why. Chalky is fighting a giant for Nathaniel. No reason other than the fact that he just lives a charmed life. He is a fancy lad. Finally reaching Hawaii, Nathaniel offers his newfound companions a job at his father's hotel. They decline and tell Nathaniel he's a fancy lad who should stay in Hawaii. Seeing through his father how snobbish he used to be before boarding the filthy whore, Nathaniel discards his wig and leaves to find Trina. Then they both join the crew of the filthy whore. So we've talked about the flaws in this film. I can forgive the shitty sets, the goofy scripts, Vikings fucking sharks, but there is one flaw in Cabin Boy that I hadn't noticed in my teen years when I was young and wide-eyed and energetic and not cynical, and that's that this movie lacks an ending. I've never noticed that before. The climax is Nathaniel killing a giant, which is also sort of uneventful. He just kind of pulls on the belt and then Mulligan dies and that's it. And then it's just Hawaii, dad, bye. I don't know what I wanted. I'm not a filmmaker here, but I wanted something different, crazier, more memorable. I just think about those other movies that you guys mentioned, like Tommy Boy, like Billy Madison, where things got really wacky, and this one just kind of petered out.
I don't know, though. Like, the movie ends up being a little over an hour and 20 minutes, which feels like a miracle for this film, because I don't know how they squeezed an hour and 20 minutes out of this plot, out of this idea, out of this sketch comedy. I think it's kind of amazing. So I guess maybe I just didn't expect much because it didn't really have if we did like a plot mountain. Remember how we used to do those in school? Like, here's our plot mountain for Cabin Boy. Like, what's the exposition? Well, he's a fancy lad. What's your rising action? Well, I don't know, maybe the raft scene. What's your climax? I don't know, right? Like, I think there's no plot structure to it, so I didn't expect a resolution. I don't know. I thought it was kind of great.
But I think there's a pacing issue. You get the first act, you spend a lot of time in the school, getting to know the characters, you get to out to the ship.
3 minutes.
It's an hour and 20 minutes. 3 minutes is a substantial portion of this film.
That's fair.
I think the last 25, 30 are funny. They're fast. They're enjoyable. I wish we got more of that. You know that there's some footage out there of some ridiculous shit they came up with, Gene. This felt like some of the best parts that we liked about Return to Oz. Some of the, I saw the winking iceberg and the mountain that comes alive. So many ridiculous things that I would have paid to see them do another 20 minutes exploring, Hell's Bucket. That's where the gold was, not in this other shit.
Well, you asked the question of whether or not they ran out of material. I asked the question of, the whole movie I find to be quite funny. I don't really know if it's that funny at the end. And I think a lot of that is, I talked at the beginning about movies from this era, right? And I think that there's a lot of them that don't hold up because they are so specific to their time. The one that always comes to mind for me is not just Hot Shots, but Hot Shots Part 2. There is so much callback joking like Family Guy does. You have to understand the pop culture moment that is happening in Hot Shots Part 2 that I don't think if I showed it to my children, they would find anything about that movie funny, because it has to be something that's rooted in the time period it comes out. And I think that that's even the case for some Sandler, not his greatest stuff, but some of his lesser stuff like Little Nicky or maybe even The Water Boy, right? Those movies may not hold up over time because they're really stupid in parts. So I want to ask that question here. I was asking myself, is this really that funny of a movie, as it was kind of wrapping up once they got to Hawaii and they're all sitting there and they're having dinner. And then they hit me with what is probably the funniest line of dialogue in this entire movie, where he goes, it's like that classic children's story. And one of the crewmates says, like The Wizard of Oz? And he says, no, I'm pretty sure it's The Great Gatsby. And I busted out laughing. Like, it is so dumb, but so fucking smart. It's this weird amalgam of like highbrow, like only readers are going to understand why that reference to Jay Gatsby is so funny. And it's yet a really stupid fucking movie. And for me, I was like, man, I know that comedy like this can't get made today. And I felt really upset about it because 90s comedy was gold and it will never, ever happen again.
I think a big difference there is look at the star and look at the attitude of the film, right? Cabin Boy is different because it has zero cool, because Chris Elliott has zero cool. Like, you got your Charlie Sheen and Hot Shots, right? It's cynical. Like, it's a parody film. By definition, it's going to be cynical. But even Billy Madison in that Likeable Loser and Adam Sandler is the lead. Like, Adam Sandler was cool in Hollywood. Like, people thought, oh, it's cool. It's an Adam Sandler movie. He's cool, right? He can show up on a red carpet despite his clothing now with his giant shorts and all. Like, there was a period when Adam Sandler was considered cool. Chris Elliott, never cool. He never fit in. You look at him, he's just a weird looking dude. He's got weird mannerisms. And Cabin Boy is the Chris Elliott of film. It's so odd. It's almost art.
Yeah, there's no way this film gets made today. Nothing even close to this movie. Would you questioned it, Gene? Why would they like greenlight this? Who thought this was a good idea? This wouldn't even get like to the point of spending any money. And I think that's sad. You miss something. You miss these gems that come out of a perfect storm of just misfitting parts.
I'll take it even a step further, which is in the early days of internet, if you remember, when there were sites that you could go to and there would be like, you know, funny videos or something like that people produce, or like little like flash games that you could play and stuff, where you had to type in a URL of a site you knew that had some funny stuff on it, like Funny or Die maybe. There you could discover stuff like this and it would be funny and you share it with your friends and stuff like that. Now, with TikTok and Instagram and everything being algorithm driven, even shit like this would not fly now. It would not, like, we're not just past the era of this not being a film. We might be past the era of this even being internet material, where there was a period maybe 20 years ago where it might have been. And with that optimistic viewpoint, let's get to the Shat Score. The Shat Score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get different perspective. But 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's when you have your days full of mirth and good fortune. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It's when you get a cup of chum. Ash, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for Cabin Boy?
So I don't think that this is a perfect movie. I'm not going to come in here and try to give 0 wipes to Cabin Boy. Like, fear not. But I think this is one of the most unique comedies that we have looked at on Shat The Movies. I think that if you look at just the ending scene, I mean, he fucking surfs his girlfriend back to the boat at the end. Like, it's so ridiculous. But is it like good? Is it great? I don't know. I really don't know how to review this movie, because I don't on its face think it's like a really well done film, but I think it's something so fucking special. So I wrestled with this. Like, I went through some like sort of algorithmic reality trying to justify for me how I was going to like score Cabin Boy. And what I've come up with is, yes, on its face, maybe it's a 4 wipe movie, but uniqueness and specialness, I think it's like a 0 wipe movie. So I'm coming in right in the middle, and I'm going to call this sucker a 2.5 wipes. I'm splitting the difference. I'm saying it's perfectly average. I fucking loved it. I was so excited we got to review it, and I'm just going to leave it there.
I'm coming in really close, Ash, and like you, I struggled a lot with this film. And I'm trying to be really objective here, because Cabin Boy still makes me laugh out loud. And I agree with you. It's just so different. And I'm so glad it exists. And I want it to be celebrated. But at the same time, I can't say I'd recommend it to anyone who didn't live through those years when David Letterman and Chris Elliott were on TV, or anyone who doesn't appreciate truly stupid movies. And so I would say for 90% of the people out there that I would talk to, they say, should I watch Cabin Boy? I'd say no. You're not going to get it. You're not going to like it. You're going to think it's terrible, and you're going to be mad at me, Gene Lyons, and wonder why I have a movies podcast. So I'm coming in just a little bit more positive than you at 2.25 wipes.
I'm really struggling here. I'm really, really struggling because on its own, the movie has so many flaws that we've just equated to a stylistic choice and being brilliant because it works now 30 years later, for we are the target audience. If anyone's going to like this film, it's us. But Gene, I got to fall back on what you said. If we recommended this to 10 people, 9 people are going to be like, you guys are fucking crazy. What are you talking about? It was like The Quickening when we said that was worth it to watch for the movie behind the movie. And I was going to do 3 wipes, but I can't. That's just because I love Chris Elliott. I feel for him and the pain in his voice and Adam's voice. And I know I shouldn't let that affect me. But watching it, ironically, I laughed a bunch of times, but I don't think many other human beings on the planet besides the 3 of us and our wonderful commissioners and his wife would laugh. I got to go 3.25.
Spanning from 2.25 wipes to 3.25 wipes, it gives us an average wipe score of 2.6 repeating wipes for Cabin Boy.
So, Jim, with that score, that now ties this with a bunch of other films in the 194 spot. Pretty Woman, Top Gun, Rambo First Blood Part 2, Ghostbusters, Poltergeist, Roadhouse, My Cousin Vinny, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, LA Story, Crocodile Dundee, and 12 Monkeys.
Now I feel like we were too kind to this movie.
Yeah.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, really? Wow, Top Gun.
I think this one caught us at a weird time.
Yeah. I mean, I might still have like choppy brain.
It's odd, but again, you guys are the audience for those surreal films. Like you like those.
I think it's a fair score, y'all. Like, and I think it's just weird when you put a movie like this up against like all the like. We do a lot of mainstream movies on this podcast, which makes sense, right? We're an 80s and 90s pod. We're going to have to do stuff that most people saw. So there's this collective consciousness there, right? But there are a few films that we do that are not mainstream. And I would argue this is not a mainstream film. It may have had mainstream people in it, but the way the comedy is constructed, like this isn't like a movie that like everybody like was going to go see on a Saturday and be like, whoa, Cabin Boy was fucking great, right? Like, no, people were going to shit on it. So it makes sense to me that it feels like weird.
No, but I think that may have sabotaged it because it's weird now, but back in the day, the number one comedy that year was Ace Ventura. People walk into Ace Ventura, they want to see Jim Carrey talk with his ass. They want to see comedy which is predictable. People in 94 must have gone into the theater, the few who did, and said, what the fuck is this? This is something so bizarre. You know, even dumb movies like Biodome came out this year and did fairly well. People weren't ready for something this different.
I think in addition to that, it's a tough movie to talk about. Like on this podcast, we can talk for fucking 2 hours about hard bodies, but for some reason, Cabin Boy is difficult. And it reminds me of like when you're high and someone's like, what's it like to be on this specific drug? I could tell you I like it. I can tell you it's awesome, but you run out of words to really describe what it is that you're feeling. And I think Cabin Boy is a lot like that. Short of just quoting the movie and telling you what happens in it, it's really a hard movie to describe. And so I think it also hurt it from a word of mouth perspective to be like, well, what's this movie about? And why is it funny? It's hard to describe.
100%.
So what Gene is telling you folks is don't take our word describing the drugs, partake, go experiment, go out, take a hit of Cabin Boy. Write us back.
See if you like it.
Yeah, see if you like it.
See what that makes you feel the next day.
Take 10 milligrams of take some gummies, take some Cabin Boy gummies, and call us in the morning.
Well, Sam, Jamie, I hope you're satisfied with the score of Cabin Boy. It was certainly a more favorable score than you anticipated, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for exposing us to a little bit of Chris Elliott. Before we close out, we do have some email that we've had that's been waiting patiently here in the Shat inboxes, and I'll turn over to Ash for those.
So we're going to start tonight with an email from Shane that's entitled Animal Welfare. It says, guys and Ash, I've been a longtime listener, jumping on in the early days around episode 5, and I love the podcast. Because of that, I know Gene's heart is in the right place when it comes to his pets and dogs in general, but I worry that Gene and Ash, sorry Ash, you haven't talked enough about your pets for me to base an opinion on your stance, but sorry you lost your beloved pup in 2020, are falling into propaganda from the animal rights side. The animal rights side wants no pets, so they use propaganda in extreme cases to enhance their position. I've worked in the pet industry for almost 25 years now, and I've seen all sides. sides of it: the good, the bad, and the amazing. Long story short, though, if we eliminate breeders of dogs and go to rescues only, we'll have no pet dogs in 12 years. The average dog lives 12 years, so if they stop breeding now, boom, no pets. As for pet stores, yes, there are unscrupulous stores selling poorly cared for dogs, but the majority are more regulated than even a breeder, but especially a rescue. You see, the stores have to buy from licensed, regularly checked breeders, where they themselves are also regularly checked by the authorities. Whereas many rescues are buying from bad breeders that are unregulated, and since the dogs are kept at the rescue for a short time period, there's little chance to verify the keeping by the authorities in charge of them. On top of that, many of the rescues get overwhelmed by rescue efforts and get in over their heads, but their hearts don't tell them to stop until it's too late, which is why most dog rescues only last a few years as their owners get burnout. Obviously, state and local government run facilities last longer, but they have turnover of personnel to facilitate it. Never mind, not a short story, but I hope you guys can see that breeding isn't always a horrible thing, and it's essential for the future of pet keeping, which is essential to the happiness and mental well-being of many people, myself and Jean included. Great podcast. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Shane.
Now, Shane, you've been in the pet industry for almost 25 years, so I'm not going to act like I know more than you do about pets, but I want to clarify my position here. Breeding for profit should go away. In fact, you know what? I'm not even going to say it should go away. What I'm saying is that people should stop buying from breeders, and it should naturally kind of run its course. But that doesn't mean that people aren't going to be not spaying and neutering their dogs and producing. Trust me, we're not going to run out of dogs and cats. There's fucking plenty of them. I volunteered at shelters for 20 years now. And I know we're not going to run out of them. That's just a fact. But let's kind of work that one down. You're talking about kind of the failings of the shelters. The shelters wouldn't need to exist if there wasn't overbreeding, right? That's the whole problem. And so we're nowhere. That's a bridge we should cross when we come to it. The idea that dogs are going to be gone in 12 years if we shut down breeders doesn't really make sense. But I do want to clarify that my stance is not that they should be necessarily outlawed. It should be that people should adopt and not shop. And that would get us to a place where we need to be. Now, I understand that there are certain working dogs that need to be bred to certain specifications because there's certain jobs. That's great. I'm totally fine with that. You know, if you need your Belgian Malinois. But what I'm saying is I see people repeatedly who are buying corgis, Australian Shepherds from breeders for no reason when there are plenty of them on reservations, plenty of them at rescues. And we really, really need to adopt first in our approach to dogs and cats.
I think the problem is everybody wants a puppy, right? And the issue is most people are not trained to have a fucking puppy. And so that's where we get into such an issue is that they're like, oh, well, I want a husky, but I want a husky puppy. It's like, no, you don't. You don't want a husky puppy. You want a husky that's already grown, that maybe has some skills, because puppies fucking suck.
Fuck, I'm going to say something controversial here.
Yeah.
Half the people who have dogs or cats shouldn't have them.
Oh, totally.
People who are either aren't emotionally prepared. And I'm a little touchy. The breeding that bothers me the most, and it's near and dear to my heart, is ducks and rabbits. Fuck you guys who breed those to sell around Easter. Okay? Last year, a couple months after Easter, guess what? Somebody bought a white rabbit and got tired of it after Easter, and it was fun. Hey, kids, we got an Easter bunny. Until he shows up in our yard. Marshmallow, who's been the greatest pet I've ever had right now. I'm a rabbit guardian, a proud rabbit guardian, because somebody bought them for their kids. Who the fuck does that? Who buys ducks for their kids? Fuck. And I got some news here. Another one for you, Gene.
Yeah.
There's going to be another new pet in the Ebert home. Vanessa went to Brazil to see her folks. She fell in love with a stray injured cat that was in their parents' yard. We are now getting a Brazilian stray. Will be coming home in 2 days with her.
Will Marshmallow be safe?
Marshmallow's cool as fuck. He doesn't care what.
I'm talking about the cat being cool as fuck.
No, I believe the cat. The cat better be. You don't go after Marshmallow.
All right. Well, Shane, thank you so much for writing in and sharing your thoughts on this. And again, I say that all with respect, knowing that you've been in the industry and I have not. More, it's finding that common ground and understanding of what my meaning was, that we really should be adopting and not buying from breeders. There's plenty of dogs out there and cats. Lots of cats.
Well, thank you so much, Shane. The next one comes from Will, and he wants us to consider the best of the best or the Beastmaster. And Will says, are either of these movies already in the Shat funnel? If not, I'd love an opportunity to sponsor one or both of them. Thanks for your time, Will.
Will, when I was a kid, there was a channel 45. It's a broadcast channel here in Arizona. Best of the Best and Beastmaster were like a regular, I don't know if you guys experienced this when you were kids, but it's like a regular like weekend afternoon feature when they would just play these like garbage movies, but you would watch them over and over again because it was what was on. You had like 4 channels to deal with. So I've seen both of them. I would love to get back to them because as a kid, not having options of what to watch, I would watch these movies repeatedly. And I'm very curious now as an adult with millions of options if they still hold up.
Any movie with ferrets as like a wild attack animal. That's a movie I want to go back and see again. And I think there's some boobies in it too, because I remember I was forbidden from seeing it.
To be clear, we're talking about Beastmaster, not Best of the Best.
Yes. There's no ferrets.
There are no ferrets in the Taekwondo tournament.
No.
You never know.
No.
Well, the next one we have is another commission question. This comes from John J. And he says that he has one movie in mind, which is Slapshot from 1977. Doesn't know if that still works for us, but apparently this is the definitive hockey movie outside of Miracle. And the other options he's giving us for the 2 slots that he has are Basketball, Die Hard 2, The Abyss, Running Man, and Hudson Hawk, which John says would round out his picks. And I have to tell you, The Running Man would make me so fucking excited if we did that on this pod.
So I can give you an update on this one.
Okay.
This is an exciting one, folks. I'm going to go back.
Okay.
This is now December of this year. Slapshot is in December. It's scheduled for John W. Now, the second one John W. gave us a choice with. Man, it would be great to do Die Hard. Then we had another commissioner, Patrick B., wrote in and said, I want to do Die Hard with a Vengeance. These came in within a couple days of each other. So because of the schedule, we were able to finally schedule Die Hard 2 and Die Hard 3 with a Vengeance back to back New Year's this year.
I happen to know, John, by the way, he is one of my D&D friends. We played together and former coworker. And I know John has got some deep pockets, so he might be willing to even spring if we're willing to do The Running Man as well, because holy shit, is that an amazing movie. And it just occurred to me that we hadn't done it. That's wild. It is a travesty. It is a crime that we have not done.
One that's so good. Ugh. Okay, well, the next one we have is from Ryan, who's writing about True Detective. And Ryan says, I've been waiting to start True Detective Season 4 so I could sync it up with your pod. At this point, I'm wondering, are you skipping it? I've seen nothing on Twitter about it from you guys, and I don't follow the movie pod week to week. Sorry if you said something there. I found your podcast with Westworld, and I listen to the movie pod every time it links up with a movie you've covered. It is totally okay if you skip True Detective. You owe me nothing. I'll commission sometime when I'm not fucking broke. I enjoy your work.
Well, Ryan, let me save you some time here. If you haven't started True Detective Season 4, don't. The Billie Eilish anthem for it is the best part of the entire show. You don't really need to watch any of it. I highly recommend just watching Season 1 again. It's really, really good. Ash, I know you've got some TV recommendations as well that people could watch instead of True Detective. But thanks for writing in, Ryan.
Yes, everybody out there, go and watch the Netflix show 3 Body Problem. It takes about an episode or 2 to get into, but it is great. Give D&D a chance. It's the Game of Thrones showmakers. They've done a really good job with it. I loved it. It's significantly better than True Detective 4, which was a fucking dumpster fire.
And I want to take this public forum to thank Eugene Lyons. You were correct. You saved Ash and myself from a very bad destination. We loved it right away, Ash. I thought we were thinking True Detective Season 4 was going to be something that we should have reviewed, and then Gene poo-pooed it, and in the end, Gene was right.
Well, I don't know if he was right. I think that it was a great show up until the last episode. I think that it was significantly better than the fucking last season of Westworld that we all suffered through. So I would have been.
They were both bad. They were both really
Yeah. Well, and the last email that we have tonight comes from Dave, and Dave has another commission question. He says, has anyone commissioned Rain Man? If not, I'd like to. I couldn't find it on previous events. And that comes from Dave E.
Confession, I've never seen Rain Man.
No. Really?
I know Hot Water Burn Baby, but only because people say it. I don't actually, no, I've never seen it. I think it's a movie that I would love. It's a movie that I would love. Yeah. I've just never gotten around to watching it.
It's good.
It's time for Wapner. That's what I remember. It's time for Wapner.
I think I was too young. I think it was one of those movies that my mom was like, no, you're not old enough to see this movie. I don't know why, because I don't know what happens in it, but.
Yeah, I hope it holds up. I mean, did it win an Academy?
Yeah, well, it had to. You know the rules.
Don't worry. Yes, we would definitely do it. Yes. Oh, it won 4 Academy Awards. Best Picture, Director, Actor, Screenplay. Whew. Yeah.
Tropic Thunder was right. Also, I know that Dustin Hoffman's character doesn't have a developmental disability, but I'm using it as an overall rule, the Tropic Thunder rule.
Okay.
Just going to keep digging this hole. Anyway. Well, thank you to everyone who emailed us. If you'd like to email us, you can reach us at hosts@shatpod.com. Also, if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, go to shatpod.com and use the SpeakPipe feature on any device. We'd love to hear your voice. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, Rupert Pupkin is a failure in life, but a celebrity in his own mind, hosting an imaginary talk show in his mother's basement. When he meets actual talk show host Jerry, he convinces it will provide him his big break. But Lansford isn't interested in the would-be comedian. Undaunted, Pupkin effectively stalks Lansford, and when it doesn't work out, he kidnaps him, offers to release him in exchange for a guest spot on Langford's show, commissioned by Charles M. And if you've seen The Joker, I think this is pretty much like the second half of it, the very ending. I think it inspired it.
I'm just deeply committed to getting my Scorsese and my Coppola right this time. So thank you, Charles, for the chance to redeem myself. And thank you to Sam for commissioning Cabin Boy. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media, share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat The Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Lovecraft Country, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
And I'm thinking as I'm sitting here now, well, maybe this is my big break. This is my big chance. You know what I mean?
You don't just walk on to a network show without experience. Now, I know it's an old hackneyed expression, but it happens to be the truth. You got to start at the bottom.
I know, that's where I am, at the bottom.
That's a perfect place to start.
So will you please give your warmest greetings to the newest king of comedy, Rupert Pupkin.
His name is Rupert Pupkin. He lives in a world of make-believe.
Oh, Jerry, I love this guy. Always coming up with these great lines. I love him.
Nobody can remember his name.
Mr. Pipkin. Mr. Pupnik.
Mr. Puffer.
Rupert.
Pupkin, Pupkin.
But by 11:30 tonight, the whole world will know that Rupert Pupkin is the new king of comedy. Robert De Niro, Jerry Lewis, in a Martin Scorsese picture. The King of Comedy.